board gaming pal Nick here, and today we're taking a look at Story War, which is published by Cantrip Games and designed by Brad O'Farrell and Tom McLean. This was a Kickstarter game, very successful, made a lot of money, and it's basically a storytelling card game for 3 to 8 players where you're battling against each other with warriors and trying to come up with the most plausible or ridiculous story to convince a judge that you won. Very simple, and also one of a very few games in this very specific subgenre of board and card games, the storytelling game. So I can only think of a few off the top of my head. Once Upon a Time is another smaller card game like this. There's more epic, grandiose board games like Tales of Arabian Nights and Agents of Smersh. But still, if people who are interested in that genre are craving more games like this. So is this going to be the right game for you? Well, let's take a look. Okay, Story War is a very simple game. The entire game is just cards. You have red cards, which are warrior cards, blue cards, which are item cards, and green cards, which are location cards. Now, the way that the game is going to be played depends on the number of players. If you have 3 or 4 players, it's just going to be one player. Each round is going to be the judge. The other players are going to be battling each other. And if you're doing more than 4 players, then there's still going to be one person that's the judge, but the players to the left of the judge are going to be one team. The players to the right of the judge are going to be another team. And if you have 6 or 8 players specifically, then one player opposite of the judge is going to be a maverick who can jump in on either team at any time during the battle. So how this works is the judge in the round is going to draw a location card. And the location cards all just have different fantastical places that the battles are going to take place. So this one is the Mystery Mansion, and there's just artwork, and then all the text down here on all of the cards are just flavor text. That's all it is. There's nothing else on these cards. So that's the Mystery Mansion. We'll say that's where we're going to have this battle at for our overview. But there's other locations like the library and the Candy Prison, which is kind of funny, the Dark Castle, and its opposite, the Sky Palace. So there's a whole deck of those, lots of different locations to possibly have battles at. And then each player is going to get 3 red cards and 2 blue cards. So 3 warriors and 2 items. And there's all kinds of different warriors. You have the Brave Knight, presumably brave. You have the Mummy, Frog Prince, who looks nothing like a character from a famous RPG video game. Bugbear, that sounds familiar. The resemblance is striking. Fairy, which I actually think is probably some of the best artwork in the game. Puss in Boots, I like that one too. The Leviathan, that's pretty cool. It's hard to imagine that anything's going to be able to defeat him, but it all depends on the story you make. And, of course, a zombie, because every game has to have a zombie now, didn't you know? But in any case, everyone's going to get some of those, and then you're going to have item cards, and there's all kinds of different item cards as well. And let me remind you that the only text on this card is flavor text. You have a shrinking spell. You have Excalibur. I think I've heard of that before. The Philosopher's Stone. I know a certain pair of brothers who are looking for that. An invisibility ring, always useful. And a time bomb. That could be powerful. And a wishing star. That looks like a famous type of thing that I know from an anime as well, but let's not talk about that. What's basically going to happen is, whether you're playing one-on-one or teams, let's just go ahead and assume that we're doing 2 teams of 3. Each player is going to lay out their warrior cards. Let's make some room here. So we got a zombie, the Leviathan, and Puss in Boots going up against a fairy and Bugbear and the Frog Prince. Since it's me, the team with the Bugbear is going to win, but let's just assume that there's still a chance the other side will win. Now, what's going to happen is the judge is going to declare, okay, I want this side to go first over here. So that side is going to give their best argument as to how they're going to completely annihilate the other side. And you can say whatever you want. You can say, okay, the fairy uses her magical fairy dust to sprinkle it over the zombie, and zombies are anathema to fairy dust, so he starts to turn back to life, which weakens his zombie powers. And the player who put down the Bugbear can say, all right, the Bugbear disperses into his constituent parts of bugs and swarms into the shell, all the cracks and crevices of the shell of the Leviathan, and just totally wreaks havoc on him. And the Frog Prince goes toe-to-toe with Puss in Boots, and Puss can't get a hold of him because, he's too small. And the judge can hear those arguments, and the other side has to stay quiet and say, okay, well, that sounds reasonable, so I think that the zombie is going to be weakened, so we're just going to turn him this way. But I don't think Puss in Boots is really going to be stymied by a little frog, so he manages to dodge the attack. And the Leviathan, well, Leviathan has all kinds of crustaceans and barnacles all over him all the time, so he doesn't care about the bugbear's bugs. And that's that. That side has had their shot. Now, the other side has a chance to rebuke that and say, okay, well, you may have weakened my zombie, but while you were doing that, the zombie was able to lash out and bite the fairy, and so now the fairy is turning into a zombie, and the Leviathan was able to suck in all of the bugs from the bugbear, and Puss in Boots was able to, eat the Frog Prince, and whatever argument you think you can make that's going to convince the judge to like your story more. And then the judge can say, okay, well, that sounds pretty reasonable, so the fairy is definitely weakened, and, well, I think that just pretty much kills the bugbear, so we're going to flip him over like this, and he's out of the battle. And then, we're not done there, because now each chance has a side to give a final argument and a rebuttal to actually say that, oh no, that didn't happen, my side is actually going to win. And then they're going to be able to each play a magic card, and if it's a team game, each side can only play one card total for them. So one side could say, aha, but the Frog Prince was able to use the invisibility ring and jump up and stab Puss in Boots from behind, so that's obviously going to kill Puss in Boots. And then, the fairy, before she becomes like a zombie completely, uses her shrinking spell to make the Leviathan as big as like a normal turtle, and that's basically the game. So eventually the judge is just going to say, I've had enough of this nonsense, and this side wins, or this side wins, or you know what, who really cares? Let's go to my final opinion. Okay, I said in the introduction to this review that storytelling games really apply to a very specific subset of the gaming culture. In other words, the fandom that actually like these games a lot. I would go further and say that Story War is even aimed at a more specific subset of those people. The people that want storytelling games that have absolutely no structure whatsoever. So, there is structure in this game. There's a rule book, and it tells you what you should do in phases. But actually applying those rules in real life to the game just does not work. Now, I've played this with two groups of people. One group we did a 4-player game. The other group, we did the maximum, according to the box, which was 8 people. And two very different experiences, but both equally bad. So, yeah, spoiler alert, this game is bad. I don't like it. In the 4-player game, it was just boring. Because essentially what was happening is, one player would be the judge, and the people are battling it out. And it was just like, all right, my character kills yours with this. Okay, well, your turn. Okay, my character is going to defend against this and do this. And so it was just, obviously it's going to have different reactions from different people. I would like to think that the group of people that I played this with in a 4-player game was actually very creative and very nerdy and geeky, and that they were into it, but still, there just wasn't much going on there, and it, being the judge was the best feeling because you could actually have the power to decide who won, but when you were just a player, it just kind of felt like you were flailing around and didn't know what to do. It got even worse with 8 players, and the thing about it is, this is supposed to be, it's just a storytelling game, but it's also supposed to be more of a party game. At least that's how I envisioned it, and how I envisioned it when I backed it and got the game. But it's actually even worse with a large amount of players, making its usefulness as a party game very questionable. Because when you have 6 to 8 players, total chaos, and not in a good way. Forget about the phases they detail in the book where one side gives their argument and the other side stays perfectly quiet. Doesn't happen. Can't happen. And the game doesn't even really lend itself to that. The game is supposed to be ridiculous, so why have these phases that, to follow when it's just not going to happen in a party game like this, especially when there's teams, and you're forced to do teams when you have that large amount of players, above 4. And, it's one of those things where it's a storytelling game, so the people that like it are not going to want a lot of structure, but this game needs it, because it's just far too arbitrary. You cannot count on anyone to make any kind of logical sense. And I feel silly saying that because this game is not supposed to be about that, and I know people are going to say in the comments, well, you're just not getting the point of the game. This game is supposed to be ridiculous. You're supposed to just have fun, but I don't know. I've played ridiculous games like this before, like Channel A, the anime card game, where you have to string together words to make crazy anime titles, and then you have to just freeform creatively think of a story of why that's funny and why that's a great show to the judge. But that game seemed to work. It just maybe I don't know. There's just not enough here. What it basically comes down to is this is barely a game. I'm not even sure that I could rationally, logically call it a game. Again, people are going to say rationality and logic have nothing to do with this, but I don't know. For me, it was a big disappointment. I actually like the artwork style a little bit. Other players did not. I like the idea of it, but it's just not for me. It's, I feel like I'm actually bending the rules of Board Game Brawl by reviewing a game that is barely a game. But to each their own. If you are really into storytelling games, maybe you want to give it a shot. If you actually like games that are going to have some small semblance of structure and control and people not screaming over each other at the top of their lungs, pass it. I don't recommend it. That's Story War from Cantrip Games, and see you next time.